Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and if this is your first time here, I sure appreciate you stopping in. Guys, today we're going to talk about, notice the heading here, it says scrapes and hunting scrapes. We're going to talk about some pre-rut hunting tactics. If you haven't already done so, please watch the video that I did, I think just before this, or a couple videos maybe before this, talking about the scrapes and making scrapes make sense, or making lures make sense. We'd like to take a minute to thank our great partners, Promised Land Tree Service, Scent Thief, Painted Arrow Outdoors, Wicked Feeder Solutions, Bluebird Drones, DLS Outdoors, Jackhammer Mineral, Full Spectrum Products, Harper Growing Solutions, and Cabela's. So today, guys, we are going to do just that. We're just going to dive right into this one in kind of a follow-up, if you will, a second video to the other one that I labeled Make It Make Sense, right? Make deer sense make sense. So there's a lot of moving parts to that one, guys, but I really feel that this time of the year, here in central Kentucky or the Midwest, we're talking about that. So our pre-rut means, end of October, depending on where you're at in the country, maybe even into the first week of November. Down south, it could be a month from now, so fit this to your time window. But the pre-rut, guys, is the pre-rut no matter where that time falls, right? That mentality that we're hunting. But I'm going to do kind of a whiteboard drawing on a couple of different topics here today to really get your mind churning and kind of use this first and foremost as an educational piece, right? Because like I said, guys, in that other video, for years, I bought into the whole, I had to have, in the pre-rut and the rut, I had to have some help as far as these scrapes or these lures. And don't get me wrong, guys, lures can work, right? I'm not saying that they can't. I touched on where to get that product and what to use. I like to use real product. So in other words, from, from Nature's Best up there in Michigan, from Tom Whitty and the family. But it's more of an application thing, right? In a hunting strategy, it's not that it doesn't work. I've seen synthetics work. It's not that they don't work and they can't work. It's how we are, trying to put all our eggs in one basket and expecting them to do something for us that I think a lot of times just don't do that, right? Or just don't perform. So let's jump to the board here, guys. First and foremost, I got right here labeled, downwind, is it working, right? Is it working, is it not? So this scenario, guys, I think it is very common in the scrape hunting and or using lures. Is you have to remember, guys, is if you just go into a spot and let's just say it's a leased property or a public ground piece, or maybe you're, depending on the acreage that you have, maybe the budget doesn't allow to build the whole farm. There's so many moving parts, right? But, which is all okay. But the problem is I see a lot of folks getting caught into this, like, it doesn't take you very long, whether it's my channel or, a lot of other people talking about it and using licking branches and scrapes, right? And just going out and putting a scrape out in the spot that's good for you, and hoping and praying that turns into something. And first and foremost, guys, that scrape has to be very, very calculated. So that licking branch, right, has to be very calculated where you're putting it before it's going to perform to the fullest. So being a private landowner, we can put them sometimes where it's best for us because of our access, which I highly recommend, and then building the habitat or manipulating the habitat, building a promoted line of travel and bringing a lot of that movement to us, right? But I really want to stress that don't get caught in this trap of just believing, and I don't know of anybody that just puts a video out there that says, hey, hang a licking branch and it'll attract all deer. Maybe that's what it looks like. Maybe that's what it comes across to as to a lot of viewers, but that's not the case, right? It's very strategic on where that is. You want to put that, on maybe the contour lines that we talked about before. Maybe it's a really good pinch. It's in a saddle. It's in a funnel. Something that they're already kind of walking past that area. And then it becomes a piece of the puzzle that you can work on and promote, such as this right here, guys. And the reason I have this here and I'm focusing on this right here is the downwind side working, is because we want to be on the downwind side. So there are folks out there are some products out there that'll tell you, hey, sit in this stand and blow the wind internal, because then any deer that is in here, if you hunted this is north, if you hunt this on a south wind, right, then anything you put in this scrape is going to plume out here into the center of the farm. Guys, don't do that. I don't care how good of a product that you have in that as far as lure, and I don't care how much that you think, whether you're in a box blind, that's the horrible situation that folks are doing. I love box blinds, right? There's a great reason for them, whether it's bow and or gun hunting, but don't think for 1 second that you're going to put yourself in that box blind and get away with everything, right? Because it's counteracting each other. You're going to, a lot of people, right, especially if you're using Scent Thief, let's say, you're going to have a product on you trying to kill the scent. And Scent Thief, right, we want them to smell it, so it shuts that epithelium down, right, is that whole new mindset. What happens is, though, guys, I still don't intentionally blow my wind at the deer just to make them smell that. It's a safety precaution, right? So if you run a ozonics or something like that, right, supposedly they save the world, right? I won't go down that rabbit hole, but you turn that on, and what you're doing, guys, is you're fighting the scent. You're taking this away. You're helping, or you're trying to kill your human scent, but you're also taking away from the scent that you've put out here in the scrape, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. And the reason for that is, guys, like I said, if this scrape is just a standalone scrape, it has to be in that spot in order for it to ever work for you. The best scenario, guys, is this scrape isn't asked to perform at the top of its game by itself, right? And let me explain that. On a leased property or a privately owned piece, even public ground, whatever the case is, guys, if you have multiple of these scrapes, right, working for you around the farm, and this is all connected now, that's when you're going to find that your scrape chances, or getting the most out of a scrape, are actually going to perform. Here's the reason why. Native scrapes, guys, are great, right? Sign gives us a place to start. But the problem with native scrapes are this. If you just hunt a native scrape, I see a lot of folks just bending, limbs down and trying to use the top of the limbs, let's say, just, the top of a tree, and making a scrape. If bucks have to stand on the back of their feet, if that's just a multitude of branches, your scent, right, is scattered all across that whole top of that tree. Not a licking branch that we use, not a 3/4 of an inch or an inch. I'm leaning more towards like white oak these days, because they get so, the vines get so brittle that they break all the time, right? Whether it's grapevine, whether it's white oak, use whatever you want to use except for pine. Pine gives off so much of that pitch, guys, and it takes away from the scent. If you don't use a licking branch and you just bend a tree over and he happens to snap the end of that off, that information that is at that phone booth, if you will, right, that information, the sad part of that is probably only the buck is using it to begin with. We want all the deer to be using it. But if he breaks that off and that thing is laying in the scrape, that's how I personally shut scrapes down. When I find them, I'll cut them down and lay them in there if I don't want it right there, right? And I want them to use my scrape. So in the native world, right, if in the natural setting, if he snaps that off and lays that in that scrape, guys, that scrape now goes away. you have to think outside the box with this, guys. A scrape is probably horribly named, to be honest with you. A scrape should not be labeled a scrape. It should have just been labeled to begin with. We should have all started calling it the licking branch, because the scrape on the ground is just a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction, guys. A very, very small, piece of the scrape hunting puzzle. So, used a licking branch. How we hang those, paracord. I cut them like 10 foot long, put a paracord on them, throw the paracord up, tie the paracord back on the stand side of the, the line of travel. So if it does break, you can adjust it. Make sure the rope's above their head, so they don't get caught in it. Find a licking branch or a limb to hang that on, so it's hanging down in there. Tie some beech or some red oak on top of it. Make it look natural, right? You have to go above and beyond to make sure that that is implemented well before the season and in the right spot, guys. Because I hope that makes sense. If hunting a scrape situation and you are asking this wind to come to benefit the best stand, to promote the stand the best, is to hunt on a northwest, northeast wind, whatever that case is, right? And keep your scent contained down here in a non-deer area. They cannot get behind that scrape if it's a standalone scrape, guys. So let's finish that one. A lot of this theory that we're putting scents and lures in these scrapes, they can't get downwind of it to read it. So how much is it really working? But when you make a stand assemblage or a licking branch assemblage, guys, you should never have a stand, never have an intersection that doesn't have one, right? Don't have 30 of them just on the farm just because you think the more the merrier. Have one at every stand location, no more, no less. So maybe you got a shot plot with one on it, maybe you got a tree stand, but please think of how you're using this as a piece of the puzzle and an amenity, right? Do not put a licking branch, a feeder, a water hole, a shot plot, the list goes on, mineral station, all in one spot. You have to spread those out around the farm, guys. You could have a licking branch in a water hole, or a licking branch in a mineral station, or a one or the other, a licking branch with something. But don't tie all those amenities together. So all of my water holes, let's say, right, have a licking branch. Those are really the only two that I ever tie together initially. The reason for that is, guys, is once you create this line of travel, whether you ever connect, let me explain it this way, whether you ever connect or make this line of travel, this red line, guys, this transition, whether you ever build that or not, by putting the licking branches there, within a couple of years, per the contour and making sure they're in them right spots, you could actually, a blind man, right, the joke is, could come down that line of travel or that trail and hook all of this together. They are going to build it themselves. We can just promote it. So whether you ever build that or not, guys, excuse me, that's what you're doing. You are actually building that you're promoting a line of travel with these scrapes. So I'll finish with this one. The reason that I break this apart, right? Scrapes and scrape hunting, or hunting scrapes. These scrapes, guys, are a 365 day a year scrape on my farm. They're not just a one hit wonder, let's just say, right? They're not just a hang them in October, or find one and make it better in October and find a scrape that's opened up, something like that. Guys, these scrapes have to be promoted 365 days a year, and the reason for that is now you have a chance. If this buck can get down this line of travel, all deer, but this buck that you're pursuing, right, can actually go from scrape to scrape to scrape and know that that's there. Now you don't need the connection point of him actually getting downwind of that scrape It's still a huge factor, but it's not the only factor. And what I mean by that, guys, is if you can dirty this scrape up enough and they are there, I've got bucks and does that urinate in the scrape, that open scrapes, that use the licking branch with that, their forehead gland 365 days a year. So what you're doing is, guys, is you're making that interdigital gland now a piece of the puzzle in their hoof. So now you've got does. All deer have that. All deer have it on their head. The mature buck, or the buck in general, has more scent on his head. The does communicate, the bucks communicate with the does through their interdigital. What I'm saying is the more that you can promote that area, so they're walking in it, they're stepping in it, they are on that line more often, going to and from this, guys, he doesn't have to so much get downwind of it as he knows that it's a magnet. This is a magnet. That's a magnet. Now, if it's not promoted, maybe he goes interior, maybe he goes exterior, but it's still a piece, it's still a draw to that location. So he will want to scent check it more, or feel more comfortable scent checking it, right, in daylight hours, if he knows it's there. He doesn't smell a human every time that he goes there. It's not some foreign scent that all of a sudden it just changes and it's there and it's never been there before. Right? You just let them work that. Your goal is, instead of worrying about what scent you're going to buy and what magical bean that you're going to put in the scrape and how you're going to walk out from the stand without getting busted and use that scrape or put lure in that scrape, your goal is focus on that licking branch itself. And if that breaks, your heart should go right, sink into your stomach. The light bulb goes off. You start thinking, like, how am I going to get in there to fix it? Because if it's during any time of the year and that thing breaks, or especially during the pre-rut and rut when they're using it more, that thing breaks, guys, you have just pulled the drain plug, if you will. You've pulled a piece of the puzzle away. Now what happens is exactly what happens in native settings. That licking branch breaks. Why is this scrape so hot? And it's always hot. All of a sudden, my scrape that I'm hunting, the licking branch is still good. Everything looks great, right? But all of a sudden they just quit using it. Why is that? The reason it is one of these other scrapes natively around your community on your farm that they're using, he broke. So now that was pulled from his line of travel, right? So now we go somewhere else to find it. Not saying that he never comes back to it, but maybe he was using it, 3 days a week, 4 days a week, 5 days a week. And now all of a sudden you've hunted it and it looks good, but this one that's 100 yards from you that you either one don't know that's there, or you left there and he's using, breaks, he snaps it off, it falls in the scrape. Now there's one over here that pops up. Well, guess what? This movement just went from here to here and gone instead of from here to here to here to here. It's a huge, huge piece of the puzzle, right? So hope that makes sense, literally. If you're going to use these scrapes, guys, and you're going to put stuff in them, there's a couple things that jumps out to me, right? Drippers, like we said, I'm a big fan of drippers. One time when you go in there to hunt, if you can get into this with an e-bike, if you have to go past this area to get, I wouldn't recommend driving down the transition, but if you go past it with a ATV, UTV, a couple, maybe like with a dripper, maybe a week before you're going to hunt it, you got a bunch of north winds and you know you're going to be spending some time in that stand. That's when you use those drippers or douse these. That just raised a couple points here. That's when you want to dose them, right? So guys, some educational pieces, right? If you know that you have a chance to hunt that, whether it be south or north wind or whatever that is, right? First and foremost, do not think or do not do this. Go into a scrape. The one of the biggest reasons scrapes don't work and scrapes fall on their face is because we find this public land, private land, whatever the case is, and we hang a dang trail camera right in their face on it, and they bust it once and they're gone. Because 100 yards from there, right, he's made a scrape and he doesn't have a flash going off, or there's not a little green light in his face or red light in his face every time he tries to use it, right? you have to really think, if you're doing this and your cameras are hung on it 365 days a year, or your cameras have been on it since July and he's using it, he's used to it. But if he shows up and there's a camera there and it's only been there a week in the pre-rut, right? He shows up there and it's something different. Don't think for a minute that he doesn't know that that camera's on that tree. So that's why, guys, so in closing here, a lot of moving parts to these, right? But in closing, guys, that's why my cameras never move. The only time that I move a camera is if I'm adding something new, or if I pick up a new lease farm, or like the other day, we had to move one of my platforms that I built for a different location, and I moved it to one of the shot plots, and that's the only time that my stands really move. But to be honest with you, I can't even use that as an example because I've had a trail camera on that one for months. You know what I mean? So I really encourage you to think way ahead instead of just getting caught in a moment with the pre-rut and scrape hunting, right? Lures can work, right? You have to think you are hunting, especially when you're trying to switch more to a estrus in those, or instead of just a doe urine, or you urinating in the scrape, or a doe urine and you're switching to estrus, right? You're trying to catch that buck's mindset, maybe that first doe. You're trying to, give him the illusion, or that there might be a doe coming into heat, first one. Usually the most mature bucks are going to find that. They already know that situation, right? Great strategy, great mindset. You got to remember, guys, that doe is only in heat, standing heat, for 28 to 48 hours, 24 to 48 hours. So if it's just getting baked and sitting there, and you're putting that on it and it's just sitting there cooking for you, the shine, if you will, wears off from that. So it has to be very strategic when you use it. It can work, but like I said, guys, do not. If the other video and if this video doesn't resonate with you at all and you don't take anything from this, please take this to heart. Do not go to your tree stand and walk that other 25 yards out to that scrape. Let all your work that you've done early, let the deer do the work for you. Don't go out that extra 25 yards, guys, and try to doctor that scrape. You're going to get busted on whether your feet, your scent, you're going to touch it, something's new. And like I've said, guys, and this ruffles a lot of feathers, but if you are able to, unless it's a shot plot or a very special area, right? If you can walk out to, in the pre-rut or the rut, if you can get to your stand and walk out to that scrape, guys, and you have enough time to doctor it and pull a card from your trail camera and get back in your stand, you are in the wrong spot. I really feel very, very confident saying that for 80%, 90% of the stands. Get to your stand, get up the stand, don't worry about what's going on down there. Already have that planned ahead of time on what you're using in that scrape or not using in that scrape, and letting all of this already be preset, if you will. So, like I said, guys, we could make a 2-hour video on scrapes. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of hunting strategies that tie to it. But those are the biggest things, guys, that jump out to me on why scrapes don't work and why you hear licking branches don't work. I tried licking branches and they don't work, and it's just a fad, and it's not. They do work, but you have to put them in the right spot. You have to treat them correctly. They have to be put in months ago, not now. But can they work now? That's a question I get, right? Can they work right now? Yes, they can. If you can get in there, hang that stand and put one of these in, if it's a new spot or if you happen to move a stand or something, get it hung, but you have to know it's not going to be as good as it potentially could have been I've killed bucks on scrapes, guys, within 24 hours of putting that there. It's kind of a joke, but I've won a lot of bets with clients saying, hey, I bet if you hang this or you get this one done, hang that trail camera on it, I bet you a case of beer that there'll be a buck on here within 24 hours. It would shock you. Sometimes I win the bet, or the, collect on the bet, if you will, but it happens a lot. Now, what buck is it going to be? We don't know, right? But the fact of the matter is, that's how powerful they are and can be, and they just are able to get better as you connect all of, correct habitat to these, and you're making pockets, and you throw a food plot in here, and all of a sudden, as a landowner, all of this starts tying together, right? It's totally separate video, big ocean of things that we could talk about, but that's what makes those locations better. But just one, or nothing else tied to them, that's why you're not experiencing what you could be experiencing with all the strategies. Hope this one makes sense, guys. Like I said, I'm bouncing around here and all this stuff comes in when you start talking about scrapes, and I love it so much. I'm such a fan of the pre-rut that it's a huge piece of the puzzle. But these are some of the tips, guys, and we'll make more as we go. I'm sure a lot of these other topics will come up through more conversation, other videos that we do. A lot of this connects and relates back to a scrape and what is a scrape and how to treat a scrape and where do you put it, and all that stuff comes in, right? But these are the major things, guys, that I think all hunters can use, especially bow hunters can use when you're, trying to figure out, is it working for you? Why? What is a scrape? And hunting a scrape, what is the strategy behind all of this? Thanks, guys.